T-Bitch. Let's go.
Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Vincent Green.
And I'm your host, Noel John Tui.
And this is Invasion of the Potty Snatchers. Let's get to it, motherfuckers. All right, no, we're back for another episode, and this is the second part of our three-part Franchise Friday episode of Invasion of the Potty Snatchers, where we take a look at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all the installments, all 9, you know, if you can believe it. But so no, in the first episode we took a look at part 1 to 4, and now in the next one we're going to look at the mid-2000s reboot and the prequel to that reboot. The reboot starring Jessica Biel. Jessica Biel, isn't it? Not Jennifer. Jennifer
Yep.
Biel is a different actor, isn't it? So
Yeah, Jessica Alba, as Sheila confused her for as well the other day. Yeah, but no, it's Jessica Biel, who was actually excellent in this movie, I have to say. She doesn't get an awful lot of credit. Yeah, she doesn't get an awful lot of credit for her acting, and quite often she's slayed. But I actually thought she was excellent in this. I just really did. I thought it was an excellent performance by her.
Yeah. So, like, in the terms of horror itself, one thing that's always maligned, nearly without a shadow of a doubt, is a remake of a classic horror movie. We look at the Rob Zombie one, which is rightly so. We look at the Nightmare on Elm Street movie, rightly so. We look at the Friday the 13th picture, and we're going to look at Texas Chainsaw Massacre, both directed by Marcus Nispel. And I actually think both of them were very, very solid remakes. Like in comparison,
I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, like in comparison, like to like in my opinion, I think it's actually nearly better than the original in terms of it actually being a movie. Like it's actually a better quality movie in terms of like it has more to it. Like obviously the original is more iconic and more landmark and the things that it did and open up all these doors for like almost like a grindhouse type store, grindhouse horror type style. But when you look at what the remake did, I think it was way more successful than many remakes, and how it brought its franchise to life and how it took aspects from the original, but it slightly changed them. So it was not like rehashing the same story. It just took similar elements from the same story.
Yeah.
And I think it made Leatherface way more ferocious, way less cartoonish.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we have that, the one thing we spoke about in the first part is the manic mouthpiece that they normally pair with Leatherface. But this one is Orly Ernie from like Full Metal Jacket. So like if you're going to have a manic mouthpiece, he is like the creme de la creme of manic mouthpieces. So like Noel, what did you think of this remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and how do you think it weighs up against other remakes of classic horror franchises?
I seen this before, but I probably seen it when it came out. So you know, you're talking nearly 20 years. So to say it was fresh, and yeah, of course, it's absolutely crazy. 20 years next year, yeah. And to say it's yeah, it does seem just bizarre. But anyway, but to say that after watching them kind of everything up till this point, and then watching this one again, it seemed to correct a lot of the wrongs. It was definitely Texas Chainsaw Massacre for a new generation. You know, it took it had characters that were characters. You know what I mean? They didn't need to talk too much. When like as soon as you see the van, they've got a pinata full of weed, and you just think to yourself that they seem to be characters in it, and the relationships that need to be over explained.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, yeah, they're just like, this is the part before they end up in the mouth of madness.
Yeah.
And I was just like, or even just from the get-go, before anyone is even slightly inconvenienced, everyone's actually in good form. They're going to a Lynyrd Skynyrd concert or something.
Yeah, they're coming back from Mexico.
That's it. Yeah, they're coming back from Mexico, and they want to go to see Lynyrd Skynyrd. And I'm just like instantly, just before any brum, 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 I'm already kind of in. And but you're waiting for the thing to hit, and like, do they just run out of gas and they're told they have to stay in town because they don't have any, or what is the thing that happens? And then the teenage girl, played by Lauren German, who would later go on to Lucifer fame.
All right. I recognized her, but I didn't place her, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I just checked the cast here, just because we were going to go on. I just checked the cast and says teenage girl Lauren German. Did not place her myself at all, so I can't claim that. But I thought, and she just says you're all going to die and just shoots herself, and then there's a great kind of camera scene through the hole in her head into the car, and everyone loses their shit, vomiting out the door. And I was just like, yes, this. I feel like I've been waiting for this.
Yeah,
this is what I wanted. I wanted all of the the classicness of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but with some of the advantages that we have in modern day with special effects, camera angles, sound quality, visual quality, and a budget. But budgets don't just bring actors, budget bring writers, budget brings locations and stuff like that. And this film just seemed to have that.
Yeah,
it just seemed to be so I don't know. I think especially because, again, a few disappointments along the way. When I was watching this one, I was into it. But this was the one I probably enjoyed the most, including the first and second. But to be fair, this one I hadn't seen. Like, I've seen the first one to the point of I could never capture the magic of my first time watching that again. I've seen it too many times. And that's fine. That's just the way it goes. But this one, I have to say, was the one that felt most like, hook it up to my veins. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. Like, I think that the 2003 movies, it captured to me what a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie should be. Like, it was ferocious. It was always on edge. You have that moment of sheer terror that this woman's just like, they're all dead. Like, and don't bring me back this way and all this. That part to me was a bit stupid.
On the wrong way.
Because they just drove the same way that she was walking. So that part made no sense to me, because she was walking in the same direction that they drove. They didn't turn around the van, as far as I remember. They just literally picked her up and just keep driving. And she was walking in the same direction, or was she walking the opposite direction? I don't know. Was she walking towards them when they were driving up the road?
I'm trying to even remember, but
I think she was walking away from them. Like, I don't know. But maybe she was walking.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that part annoyed me. It's actually annoyed me since I seen the movie the first time. I was like, wait, did they just not drive in the same direction she was walking? But apart from that, like, the way they set up, because they take elements like I mentioned in the intro from the original, and they kind of just slightly change it. So you think you know what to expect, and then they change it. So it's kind of like a homage, with at the same time they're putting their own spin on it. So like in the original, we see the crowd from the first movie, Sally, Franklin, and the other two dudes, and I think there's another girl. They pick up one of the family, and he cuts Franklin and all this shit, and he takes the pictures. So in this one, they pick up a hitchhiker as well. But as you said, it was this like young girl, she's traumatized, and then all of a sudden she pulls a gun out of I don't know where she was keeping that gun. Like, it seemed like inside of herself.
She was wearing like a summer dress kind of thing.
And that was a big gun.
And it was a big old gun that she just pulled out, and she went, "You're all going to die." But you know what? Like, there were forgivable little things, because
I'll forgive that.
That was just such a great introduction to, like, you. There is just these things where you kind of think that MASH thing that went around recently in light of what's going on in Ukraine, and thoughts about Ukraine, and fuck Putin, bunker bitch, I hope he dies. But there is that war is worse than hell, because hell is full of bad people.
Yeah.
And so they had just crossed over into a hell or a war or whatever you want to call it. They were somewhere they did not need to be.
Yeah.
And,
to get out with the dump, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. As in, I love when you're just watching it, and the little sadist that the horror movie genre brings out in you is like, that dude's definitely the first that's fucked.
Yeah.
You're fucked. You're fucked.
Yeah. What I loved about it is, like, they're like, you get into a situation where you're like, she mentions they're all dead, don't go this way, you're going the wrong way. So far, she was so terrified to the point where she pulled the gun out and took her own life. And now you have to try to figure out the situation. Like, one thing they didn't really ask, the first question I would have asked, and I said this to the day I was watching with the rain, was like, I would have asked straight away, is like, where was she going to? Who's dead?
Yeah.
What was she talking about? Why did she not want us to go in this direction? They're all the questions that I would have asked immediately, and all they kept saying was, "Let's ring the cops." Like, I'm like,
the traumatized girl who's walking aimlessly on the road, who is terrified. I have, before this van moves, I would like to know that I'm not going the direction of whatever it is has happened to you.
Exactly.
And that's not even. That's self-preservation at a level that I'm not going to apologize for.
Yeah,
I would, of course, want to get the girl to safety.
Yeah.
But no part of you should be thinking, okay, like, sure, we have to go over like eight miles of open land where these people like to hunt and prey. But like, the hospital that way is 5 miles closer.
Yeah.
It'll take us 2 hours to go around the other way.
Yeah. Like, literally, like, if I picked up a stranger and I'm driving like west, just say, and they go, they're all dead. Don't go that way. You're going the wrong way. I'd be like, pull on brakes. And I would just turn around to her and I'd be like, who's dead? And why should I go this way? Would be the very first things I'd say to her. Like, it's like, what are you talking about? Because even if she seemed incoherent, I'm like, okay, let's just spin around. Let's drive back in the other direction and let this woman tell us her story. Even if it's insanity, there's a reason she's saying these words. There's
God, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I just think that the part that annoyed me the most about this movie is that they didn't ask enough questions about the situation. And I know you could say maybe they were kind of placed in the situation before they could even ask questions. But after the fact, even they were like, let's talk to the cops in this area. This young girl, literally, as you said, like just walking, wandering down the highway, probably like 90 or 100 degree heat in Fahrenheit, you know, because they use that fake temperature over there. But
it's a silly temperature.
Yeah, but so I just think like there are questions I would have been asking, or any kind of sane person would have been asking, weren't really asked. And they straight away went into the area where she was like, don't go there, you're going the wrong way. And immediately they're like, let's reach out to the cops. And then they go to the shadiest looking fucking petrol station I've ever seen, and they're like completely obnoxious to that woman. Like,
that's a good point, aren't they?
Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Garner knows.
But that's it. Oh yeah, that's it. That's exactly what happens. And then she's like, "Oh, they want the sheriff would be much obliged if you went to him." And they've got a dead body in the car. I feel like we need to emphasize the fact that there's a dead teenage girl, and no cameras, nobody to say that it wasn't you that did it.
Yeah,
like at this point, you'd very much like the authorities to come to you. And the sheriff, no, you're not going to a police department or a police station. No, you're going to the fucking absolute back arse of nowhere,
sawmill,
to a dilapidated sawmill. And they'd be like, yeah. Like that girl was absolutely terrified of something. She didn't specify what, but she did kill herself rather than go this direction. Anyway, let's go to the dilapidated sawmill.
No, it's like, so I went to the shady place and they're directing me to another shady place, and this girl just mentioned everyone is dead, they're all dead, she executed herself. I'll go to the, like, you know what I mean? And like I can remember like Kemper, like he bows so quickly, the Jessica Biel's boyfriend, because he's like, I'm not going to drive around town with a fucking dead body in my car. Because you have to go meet with someone. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, and the places they go, like, there's no way you would drive to any of those places. Like, maybe back in the day, people are a little bit more naive because back in the 70s, like, but there's no fucking way you're going to that sawmill. As soon as you see it, you're like, all right.
Oh my God, no.
Yeah, I would have dumped that girl's body so quick.
There was that one the little scared shit, you know, that was like, I mean, it's not that he wasn't making any sense, you know, he was, can we just go?
Yeah, exactly, you know? Yeah, because it got to a certain like point where it looked so, everything was about, the situation was so shady. Like so fucking shady, like none of it seemed on the up and up, like. And then like when they go to the sawmill, they're waiting around for the sheriff. He doesn't show up for ages. And Jessica Biel and I can't remember her character's name, but her and Kemper decided to fucking, let's just start scoping out farmhouses to see if we can ring the sheriff. Like, you know what I mean? It just, I don't know. Sometimes the level of trust in this movie just didn't make sense. Like, and then when they go up to the farmhouse and that dude comes out who looks like he eats babies, like, and they immediately trust him. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
or the little kid with the teeth. Is that what you're talking about? Or
no, I'm talking about the dude, the double amputee in the wheelchair, the old dude.
Oh my God, yeah, of course. And he's just a ray of fucking sunshine. Just fucking. Oh my God, yeah. There were so many things, like there were so many red flags. But it does question, like, you want to go, like there was I can't think, he was played by Eric Balfour, Kemper. But he did like want to get the fuck out of there sometimes, and they just like had those scenes where he just looks over at the girlfriend, who in this case is Jessica Biel.
Yeah.
And she just gives him that, we're doing right by this girl, you know, we're not leaving her. And then he just like, fuck. Yeah. And I think part of him was like, I'm definitely getting killed out here.
Yeah, well, she's so hot though. Like, you know.
That's it. She's just too beautiful to not listen to. That was the situation that he found himself in.
I just thought it was ridiculous though when Kemper lets her go in the house by herself. There's no way you're ever letting your girlfriend go in that house by herself. No way. Like, as I said, that dude looks like he eats babies. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you know what I mean? I just think certain parts about it, because it went for really intense realism at times, some of the decision making in it was very stupid. It was like that. It was kind of like off-putting at times, some of the decision making in it, but the tone it went for how intense it was. From like the minute the girl kills herself, it just like amps everything up. Then they have that little lull, but as soon as Ernie shows up and Kemper follows Jessica Biel into the house, that's when shit really starts going down. So like,
Oh yeah.
I think from then onwards, the film really stays at 90 and it really holds its pace well. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it 100% does. And you did feel like you knew when the action was coming. You
Yeah,
started to project it. Like you started to feel it in your bones. And I always think that that's always a really good sign for a film when it
yeah,
knows what it's doing. That if you're an aficionado, that it feels like it's happening, because they start to slowly like branch out, and that's how a good Texas Chainsaw Massacre starts.
yeah,
Somebody branches out, and somebody ends up somewhere where they absolutely should not end up,
yeah,
and then somebody lies to somebody about what's going on, and before their suspicions can reach full peak, it's already too late. And this
yeah,
film did that, I think, in a really, like, really graphic, really grotesque kind of way.
yeah.
Like, it took full advantage of what we could do with ballistic gel and, bear traps and corn syrup and all that kind of stuff. It was just very much so if Texas Chainsaw Massacre was made 30 years later. Like, they did do a good job of showing you what
Yeah.
that film would be.
Yeah, like
For me.
a big budget. It's kind of like what it did, and obviously not the same acclaim. But the It remake by Andy Machete was, what if we took the premise of Pennywise and we put today's technology and today's budget on top of that storyline, and how would it be? How would it
Yeah,
come?
something that was made for TV in
Yeah,
1990 versus something that's made with a blockbuster budget in 2017 is
yeah,
dramatic.
yeah, exactly.
Very, very dramatic.
And I think they did like the similar thing with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. They're just like, let's look at the gritty realism from the first one and let's put a kind of like a coat of paint over it and see
Oh
if
yeah.
yeah, and as you said, they had fun with technology, the special effects, the gore, like just like in the original, the final girl Sally, who's replaced by Erin in this. I don't know why they just didn't call her Sally as well, like, but her boyfriend is the first kill, apart from the girl executing herself or killing herself.
Yeah.
Is a Kemper. What you make of that kill where your man calls him out? Like, that's the kind of the thing, isn't it? With the terrifying thing about this is the anticipation of Leatherface when your man starts hitting the fucking floor with his walking stick, and shit's about to come down and that fucking wall peels back. Like, what do you think of the introduction of Leatherface in this movie?
Yeah, it definitely had the he's arrived kind of thing.
Yeah,
There was build up to it, a literal big drum beat to
yeah,
kind of build him into it. And then he shows up and he's what you want him to be. He's just gargantuan.
yeah,
And there's no talk, there's no banter, there's no like, you've discovered my lair, Mr. Bond. Very, very far from it.
yeah,
And then it's just, he absolutely destroys him. And
yeah,
it's frenzied. It's so frenzied. It's almost like he's not all of the way as cold as Michael Myers, but
yeah,
he's not satirical like Freddy either. But he beats you to death in a way that looks real.
yeah.
You know what I mean? He just beats with anything to hand. Chainsaw, bare hands, all good.
Yeah,
All good.
he just makes
your meat, your cattle that's got out.
yeah,
And I'm trying to get home for 5:30.
yeah.
So I'm doing this as expediently as I can. And he was like that all of the way through. And I thought it was great.
It's one of the best things about Leatherface when anyone comes up against him in hand-to-hand combat, they look so outmatched in comparison to him.
Yeah.
Like, that's one thing. He's so terrifying close up. That's like something I said in the last episode. He's such an up-close killer that, like, once Leatherface, because the chainsaw itself is such an impractical weapon, something we talked about before, was that he can be kind of like, he can fuck with a chainsaw in many different ways realistically. But like, to have a guy, and we talked about on our horror movie weapon episode, pair of anchors with Beige Benford from Return of the Critics, that the chainsaw is kind of like wheeler dependent, and when you have that guy, like, the fucking size of him, the immenseness of that dude that played Leatherface in 2003, and when you put him up against normal looking men and normal sized dudes, even though the guy who played Kemper is a pretty big enough dude, and so is the blonde guy that gets his leg cut off and he gets hung on the meat hook later on. It's just that when you're put beside Leatherface in a one-on-one situation, the immensity of the situation, that like, he's just brute force. Like, in the same way Michael Myers is like pure force of nature in the terms of like, he's precision killing. He'll always keep constantly coming forward. If he marks a target on your back, no matter what, he's going to keep coming forward. But Leatherface is like brute force brought to life. As you said, as soon as he lays hands on you, it's game over. He's going to beat you to death. Like the only way you can survive Leatherface is fleeing him, not by beating him. You have to flee him.
Yeah, and even just that, that whole, it'd be very, for us, like we talk the talk, we say, like, God, if I had to defend myself, of course I would. Or if somebody hurt my family, of course I'd come after them like hell itself. But it's very hard to just take a lump hammer and just cave someone's face in 3, 4, 5, like the brain, the viscera, it's all happening, and you're just hitting, like it's absolutely nothing to you. Like Leatherface was just, you're nothing. You're a bag of meat that needs to be shut down. That's all he sees you as, and it's very hard to fight something that's like that.
Yeah.
You take a knife and you go, don't come any closer. He doesn't take a knife and say, doesn't come any closer. He takes a knife and he cuts you from sternum to throat.
Yeah.
And like, he's that.
And then just walks right through you.
And then just walks right through you. And he won't give you another thought. You just go down and you're just amongst his collection. Like he does not care he'll never find out what your name is. He'll never have any, and to fight something like that is a truly terrifying prospect. And I think that's when horror is done right. And I'm sure, of course, because we're fanboys, when Annie tried to remake a property, it almost entirely falls apart. But I actually thought I'm not sure how I felt about it originally, but upon rewatching, I thought that this was a really, really good effort at revamping the franchise, because it had all of that. The things it got right outweigh the things it got wrong, and something it got right for me was Leatherface.
100%. Leatherface is terrifying in this movie. It's terrifying in this movie. Yeah. And that's why I've said many times that like Leatherface kind of became a little bit cartoonish, or like as the original 4 went along. Like in the first movie, he's terrifying, but in the second one, he's slightly more cartoonish, and so on and so forth. It became more of a caricature of himself, and he lost that kind of like ferocity that he had in part 1. That's that fucking single mode where he'll just, as you said, he'll just like cut a person from fucking like sternum to your chest without even thinking about it, and just cut right through you. And I think this film did that. It really showed you what he can do once he's unleashed. It's kind of like he's a sleeping giant. He's just doing his thing, probably killing animals, killing things, and just skinning them and taxidermy.
You get the impression he doesn't seem to differentiate all that much.
Yeah,
between a person and a pig or something. You know what I mean? It's something that we do. Like, oh no, a human being, how terrible it is, but we wipe out animals in their tens of thousands, and he does not have that capacity. Or maybe he's right or something. That's the twisted thing about it.
Do you think as well, like in this movie, like, so we see the kind of the gang split up now, and now we kind of see the two essential antagonists. So we kind of see Harley, Ernie, like him fucking tormenting all the people that are left at the van. That the dude, when he's making him making him reenact when he first shows
going in
up,
the mouth and everything.
Yeah, when he first shows up, he's so sketchy. He gets the girl's body, puts it in the boot, gets them to put her in the boot of the car. As soon as that happened, I would have driven away. Like,
oh my god,
yeah. Like, I'm like, okay, this dude is not legit. I'm out here. Like, you know what I mean?
He was great. Can we just take a second to appreciate?
Yeah,
because we had Matthew McConaughey chewing up the scenery, which I'm not sitting on, but like when he showed up, he had the talky, like he had this twisted maniacal thing of his own, but he didn't seem like this smooth talking anything. He insisted on being an authority figure. He just insisted upon himself enough that he kind of had it, and but he was just so good in that role. He was so he was he was so dark. He just showed up and he emanated evil the second he stood out the car.
Yeah, one thing I loved about it as well was instead of actually having him share too many scenes with Leatherface, they actually used him when Leatherface was kind of the lulls in between the big gory scenes. So what they did was they used Arlie Ernie to apply the pressure when Leatherface was off screen. And I thought that was really clever because it actually kept the intensity up. So even when you don't have Leatherface smashing Kemper to death, or you don't have him chasing people down with a chainsaw, you have him terrorizing people in a completely different way. And it keeps...
Oh yeah, he was doing it on this kind of mental level. Yeah. Like he was absolutely like Leatherface doesn't hate you at all. He doesn't feel, he's completely you're not family.
He nothings you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nothing's, you're not family, so you're meat. So, and it's best to turn you into meat before you get away, because then he'll have to chase you, and that's going to be a whole thing. Yeah. So he just turns you to meat. But the sheriff, he enjoys it. And I thought of the Viggo Mortensen's, the Matthew McConaughey's, and these are all different films. The people who are just tuning into this podcast.
Yeah.
But he was the one that he was the family man, and he just hated outsiders.
Yeah,
he was just I couldn't speak highly enough of him in this movie.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, and Jessica Biel. Sorry, it's just the girl gets slated a lot with being right or wrong. The girl has taken a lot over for being a bad actress or whatever.
Yeah.
And just in this one, as a final girl, as a kick-ass, the desperation, the running, the bravery, the running back in to save her friends instead of running away. I just bought it. I just thought she did a real good job. And I have to give her credit for it.
Yeah, she's one of the major strengths of the movie, because like the rest of the cast get cut down pretty quickly as you go. Like there's a section of the movie where they build, and then a lot of killing happens in a short period of time. Like the girl gets brought back to the house, but the other dude, like, he gets locked away in the basement. Kemper's already dead. The blonde dude gets his leg cut off when they go looking back into the house for Kemper, and he comes across Leatherface. He tries to fight him with a tire. That whole scene's kind of stupid. Like, he's lying on the ground. Why doesn't he just get off? He's just like, there's a dude. Like, I'm just gonna say, right, if there's a dude in a wheelchair trying to prevent me from doing something, I'm lying down, just stand up and topple over the wheelchair and take the thing off him. Like, I just didn't understand. I just didn't understand that scene, because like, he's lying on the ground and Leatherface, the dude is thumping on the ground and the wall opens. He's still lying on the ground. He only moves when the chainsaw starts. Like,
I'm glad that we're finally exposing to the world our hatred of people in wheelchairs.
Fuck that, man.
Too long they've had there.
No, I'm just saying, like, that dude, like, he could have easily gotten it back from him, but I just think that I can't even remember my initial point, but like
that you hate people in wheelchairs. Like, sorry, continue.
Dude, I used to work with a company that manufactures wheelchairs, so fuck you.
Yeah, of course. So you could sabotage.
Shit, impose, good. Timestamp. But yeah, no, like, I think, like, with the way the cast gets killed off kind of quickly or immobilized, the movie relies massively on the strength of Jessica Biel as a final girl for a large portion of it, and she didn't let us down once. She gets covered in gunk, muck, blood. She gets almost killed several times. She gets chased down. She puts in a real, like, I think, a real top-notch final girl performance, because there's a lot of physicality to it, like a lot of physicality to the role she put in, and she was believable the entire time. And it's like you said, there was a part where she was about to leave and she realized her friend's still there and she could help her, and she goes back in the house. So like, the stakes were always there for her character, and she conveyed them very convincingly for me throughout the movie. And the second half of the movie, most of the narrative relies on her, because, as I said, either her friends are either being killed or incapacitated at this stage. Like, so and she has a lot of big scenes in the second half of the movie, and I think she does well in all of them. So I think like one thing that really bugged me about this movie, and it bugged me about the Friday the 13th remake with Jared Padalecki, is why do you kill Jason Voorhees at the end of that movie, and why do you cut off Leatherface's arm in this? Why is anybody trying to weaken these characters, trying to make them seem more human? Well, like, that makes no sense to me. Just have her escape him. Like, he should not inflict any harm on him. As I said to you, you should not be able to beat him. You should not even be able to compete with him on a physical level. The only way you survive I keep trying to call him Hellface.
Yeah, I know, but you did it once, and now it's in that part of your brain that won't let you stop doing it.
So the only way I think you should be able to survive Leatherface is if you flee from him. And I just think that he should not be able to really inflict any harm on him, because he's supposed to be so physically immense. And I think that was the major issue with the climax of this Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And the reason I mention it with the Friday the 13th is because both are directed by Marcus Nispel. So I don't know why he did that, maybe to try to humanize these characters, but why try and humanize these things that are supposed to be the personification of evil, unstoppable evil, like the living manifestation of death or whatever, just this brute force that you can't stop. All you can do is get away from. And I think I
did like when she used the red herring as a pig. Yeah. It would put it in one of the lockers, and then the pig was making a bit of noise, and Leatherface took that to be. Yeah. But then she came out and hit him with, like, it was a meat cleaver.
Yeah,
yeah. Like, if you had a chainsaw, like, I mean, the chainsaw, again, we've talked about the inefficiency of a chainsaw as a weapon if you have a weapon. But
Yeah.
like if you're standing there, somebody goes out to your chainsaw, you're in an awful lot of trouble. But yeah, like you said, he's this towering thing. You'd get 2 hits in on him with it, and you'd fuck him up. But
Yeah.
you're not taking his arm off.
Yeah.
You're not.
Especially
You're
her.
not taking his arm. Yeah, like she's a petite woman in desperate dire straits, and she doesn't have any. Like this guy would take a knife and he would know how to separate your arm or
Yeah.
separate your shoulder
Yeah.
because you're no different than this is what he does, like,
Yeah.
So yeah, of course it was a bit silly, but it was just this film had some great gore, like the guy just
Yeah.
hung on the meat hook and then chopped in half or
Yeah.
chopped across, and it's like he struggles a little bit to get through the spine.
Yeah.
And that's just like people being reduced to meat. I thought this film did that really well.
Yeah. And
People stepping in bear traps and stuff like that.
yes. So do you know when you talk about people being reduced to meat, and the reason they have this fascination with meat is that we see in the follow-up to this movie 2006 prequel that the Hewitt family used to all work in a slaughterhouse. The slaughterhouse was shut down, and then the town kind of ostracized them slightly. Then they turned on the remnants of the town and slowly took over the ruins of the town that they lived in. So what did you make of the follow-up from this? I thought it shared the tone perfectly.
Yes.
They fit together so nicely, I thought.
The introduction of Sheriff Help Brother out here.
His real name was Charlie, but he changed his name to Hoyt.
Was, I thought, excellent.
That scene,
he says, because the Leatherface obviously kills his boss. That's former boss, because he's throwing him out his job. And honestly, like that plant gave him something to do, and it kind of like kept the demons at bay, I guess. And he kills him, and then the cop goes, "Look, we're going to arrest him." And he brings him with him, and then he gets out of the car with a shotgun and says, "Sheriff, I think we have a problem." Blows his brains out, and then takes his badge. And I just thought, nice. That was nice. Like that was a nice, and especially when it's retroactively introducing a character that's already been introduced.
Yeah,
because they've gone just before 2 years or whatever before the events of the 2003 film. And I just thought that was really, really cool. I really did. And I thought the sheriff is probably my favorite non-Leatherface character.
Yeah, no, he was. I think like his the manic mouthpiece, but Arlie Ernie, there's so many times where those films could have lulled. And as I said to you about the last movie, he just keeps it up that intensity constantly. Like when Leatherface is not cutting people up, there's a lot of times where the sequence of Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of dip and lose your interest a little bit when he's not on screen wielding that chainsaw. But he just keeps it up. It's like you said, "Sheriff, we got a problem." And as soon as he says it, he executes the dude. He doesn't even give him a chance to respond or anything. He's every bit as much as a killer as Leatherface. Maybe even more so, because as you said, he enjoys it more,
Oh, he does, yeah. No, the Leatherface was something anatomically, genetically, whatever, wrong.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the capacity. The sheriff is obviously able to get to 50, 55 years of age, living in society, dealing with people on a regular basis and hide it. And that's the difference.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's when you go for an insane defense. That's why Ed Gein was able to get one. That's why it's so actually hard to do, because you have to not understand the difference between right or wrong. The sheriff understands it. He doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Leatherface doesn't understand it.
Yeah, Leatherface is going to do whatever the sheriff or whatever anyone that he holds in a regard of authority is telling him to do.
Exactly, because he knows his limitations. That he doesn't plan things out. He doesn't have the capacity to.
He nothings.
Yeah,
things,
he nothings.
I can I'll tell you one thing. If I'm working in any shop or any job, and someone says to me, "Hey, can you tell that dude he's fired?" and he's over there just cutting up piles of meat, looking into the distance, not saying a word to anybody. This plant's already closed down. What's he going to do? Fire you?
Yeah.
I'd be like, dude,
what are you going to do? Double fire me?
Yeah. I'd be like, dude, let's shut down the plant for a minute. Let's just see what happens. Because I'm not going to go over and talk to him. I'm not talking to this dude. I've avoided him every day of work since I started here. I'm not going to go near that guy. He's aimlessly chopping up meat for hours. Dude, that guy hasn't spoken in weeks. You want me to tell? Dude, I've never even seen that dude eat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this dude spends all day around food, and he has never once eaten. No, no, I'm just not doing it.
Yeah. So
Not again, not for a job that you've already lost. No, I
yeah.
thought he was just absolutely. Yeah, of course, that was also a great scene, and it was a great first death for the boss. I thought that was a good, absolutely violent, proper kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre death.
Yeah.
I thought this kind of did it. I think this is what I wanted when Texas Chainsaw gets brought to the new age, that they're able to delve more angles, more kind of cinematography to the actual violence of it. And these two films back to back did actually a really good job of this. Like, if it was possible to really build something off the back, I think these two did a decent job of it. I really do. And maybe it just wasn't to be, more so than anything else.
Do you
But
think it's a case of a snake eating its own tail, where the fan base was so fervent in not accepting these two movies in place of their beloved original, that they actually really fucking cost themselves what seemed to be a very strong little mini franchise within an already existing franchise? It was growing. It had its own identity, it had its own style, had its own level of gore. It had all high stakes. It explained the backstories of this family in a way no other Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie did. It had a really strong cast. It had like Jordana Brewster in the sequel. She kind of replaced Jessica Biel as the final girl, and you got to keep a lot of the same elements. All the same cast of the family came back. Like, I don't understand why these movies didn't actually spawn more, because they're so
yes,
good. They actually really are. They're like 7 or 8 out of 10 horror movies. Like, they really are. Think about, like, all the stupid decisions aside. Sometimes horror characters make stupid decisions just because they have to be put in those
where
situations.
would horror be without stupid decisions? People running upstairs
It'd be
instead of through the front
thrillers.
door.
It'd be
Thrillers,
thrillers. You
absolutely. It would.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, like, sometimes you have to take away the intelligence of some of these characters to put them in these situations that you normally would never find yourself in, and that's what horror is. All right, but like, when you look at take away a couple of the stupid decisions these characters make, as we said, these movies are so fucking solid. Like, they're terrifying the whole way through. Leatherface is like the physicality he can bring, the way he wields the chainsaw, where he, like, that we touched upon, the blonde dude's running away, and he just kind of fucking flings that chainsaw at him, and he cuts his leg off. Actually, no, sorry, he meets that. That's actually in the Netflix one where he flings the chainsaw, but he cuts that dude's leg off, and he just grabs him. This, like, a dude's like 6 foot, 6'2", probably weighs like 14, 15 stone, maybe less, and he carries him like he's a child, and just puts him on a meat hook like he's a shank. And like,
Yeah,
just the immenseness of the Leatherface in these two movies, and I just think that when you see the breeding ground he came from, I know he's not like their actual son, but you see the environment he grew up in, and you can see why he's the way he is. And like, they didn't try to humanize the character, but they gave us
no,
a kind of a view through the window of how
that
this
he
kind
never
of,
had a chance.
yeah,
Never had a chance.
and how he
But
could
that
be,
doesn't justify the monster he became. But he never had a chance.
yeah. And I just like the way that this showed that how a monster like that can be created. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Oftentimes it takes other monsters to create a true monster, and I think that's the case with this family, that the real monster really is Artie Ernie, and everybody else kind of follows his lead, and they become monsters themselves, because he's the one that changes them to cannibalism. He's the one that starts getting them to murder people and covering up murder. He's the one that starts to slowly take over the town and starts this thing like, we'll never go hungry again, that kind of thing. So I think he's kind of the propeller, and Leatherface is the ship, that kind of thing. Like, so he's constantly directing it, but the course of action is often carried out by Leatherface. So, like, and that's the situation. So, like, I think that's why these two movies are actually really good, in my opinion, because you have all these different elements to bring the gore, the horror alive, or whatever. And you still have all these really cool characters that they do fill us in, and they give us their motives in a way that the other Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies didn't really do. Like,
yeah, that's true. It did seem more three dimensional, didn't it?
mm.
Actually, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D coming right up. But it did seem to have the storyline, and it just seemed, without taking away from the maniacal and just inexplainableness of it,
Yeah,
the twistedness of it. And I
yeah,
think it did a really good job balancing it. And I think that when a horror movie does a good job balancing the evil, the bad,
yeah,
versus the good, like Jessica Biel, like, she was just a conscientious character.
yeah,
Like, it didn't matter what was going on. If she could save her friend, she was simply going to.
yeah,
And with the bad guys, they were twisted. and they had a way of doing things, and absolutely nothing was going to stop them. Then you had Leatherface, who they just finally just made what he is. He wasn't a pervert like he was in the second film, where he's falling in love with a would-be victim or anything.
Wearing makeup and shit.
Yeah, wearing makeup and stuff. But that he was just somebody who liked to experiment with flesh. So yeah, no, I do. I think it succeeded on three fronts, and I do think that the snake eating his own tail thing, I think it was doomed to failure because people don't know when they have a good thing. They don't, and you don't. You go in wanting to hate it, and if it's not exactly what you expect, like the first film didn't have to be exactly what you wanted to expect because you didn't know what to expect, and you don't. Every sequel never has that same safe point where people go in and say, oh, I don't know what to expect. You kind of do. You kind of already got a bias. And I thought this film tried its best on so many fronts and landed on so many fronts. And the only things I pick apart are quite silly things. So I actually thought the acting, I thought the story, I thought the introduction of the good characters and the bad characters, I thought the deaths were excellent. I thought they were grotesque. I thought it was true to the initial perversion, like the tea lady. Like she's just sitting there in the middle, like, and she's a real large woman and she's like real pleasant and stuff like that. I thought it had the whole twisted Manson family thing down as well.
I liked in the prequel too the way they kind of had it in the backdrop of the Vietnam War. You had a guy that was trying to dodge the draft, and they bring that in as well. And like I love the guy who plays like Matt Bloom or someone that plays him, that like when that's
who it was.
He keeps calling Arlie Ermy a pussy, and he goes, you think I'm a pussy? You don't want to play with me no more? When my nephew Tommy, he ain't no pussy. He'll play like, you know what I mean? He's like,
maybe you could play with him for a minute.
That scene was terrifying when he starts stripping the skin off him and all that shit, like, you know. So
and that was proper torture horror. That was proper torture horror. Unabashed.
And like even the anticipation of what was to come next, when he goes like, my nephew Tommy, like he ain't no pussy, you want to play with him, like that's terrifying as well. And that's the good of having someone like an Arlie Erny in there, where you can just, is it Arlie Erny or it is Arlie Erny, it's not Lee Erny, but Arlie Erny.
But I can't believe he was named that by people who love him.
But like to have him in that scene, it gives the kind of extra gravitas to lines like that. And but like what I really liked about the prequel was it's set up the other movies so nicely, because it showed you all the motives like we spoke about, but also we finally got to see a final girl not get away, that she got butchered. Like he thinks she's about to get away, Jordana Brewster, she's driving up to like cops or something, they're like a checkpoint, and then all of a sudden you see fucking Leatherface's chainsaw burst out to the back of the chair, and she gets like fucking gnarled to death in the front seat, like something we don't get to see it.
That was the thing. I remember going into this film, because I couldn't really recall much of it, was that because this was a prequel and because the sheriff is in his position in the 2003 film, which would be the sequel technically, and because Leatherface is there and he's unharmed and all of this kind of jazz, that everyone in this film is fucked. Everyone.
And that's,
you know, they're the guys that wandered. They're the guys like, you know, like Dutch and his team and Predator go in to find,
Hopper.
And they're all hanging from trees. Hopper, they're all hanging from trees. And this was they're all hanging from trees. Film, and I love that as well, because I love the fact that I didn't have any hope for any of them.
And I like the way as well the temptation might be to have about the family of the blonde girl from the street, the road, and not having that, because you would have known they all would have died. And I thought this was cool because they really did play with you, because you kind of don't put the puzzle pieces together until you see Jordana Brewster die, and you're like, oh, of course they all had to die, because for all the reasons you just said, like, you know what I mean, like. And that's one thing I liked about it. They really played with the idea of that there is actually they're going to be a survivor, and then you're going to be like, oh wait, then you might have asked a few questions at the end, but then the fact that they killed her, I thought was cool, because normally you don't get to see the bad guys win in a horror movie, and this time the fucking bad guys won, which is something that you don't really get to see a lot of. So that's kind of cool. Like but what did you think, before we get the fuck out of here, what do you think of these two movies as a package compared to the first four movies?
I think they're aging extremely well. I really do. I think they're what the third and fourth movie kind of wish they were. I think the first and second movie, they are what they were meant to be. One was a bit more tongue in cheek, and that was purpose, like you said. That I had to look it up. I didn't want to talk over you. You said The Breakfast Club. I didn't know they had a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, like The Breakfast Club. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They did. And So they were self-aware, and I think with the third and fourth, I think what they were going for was what the 2003 2006 captured.
Yeah,
And the violence and the grotesqueness and the storytelling and the acting. It was just the right amount of hammy that I wanted without going over it. And they made me afraid of Leatherface again, as opposed to a very kind of camped down over. I don't know. He got very silly in 3 and 4. He really did.
That's what I'm saying. He got and Matthew McConaughey and Viggo Mortensen became the
and in 2 actually. Think of it. 2 doesn't escape that critique at all.
Yeah,
a Leatherface that falls in love. No.
Yeah, I think that what the sentence you just mentioned is the perfect epitome of these 2 movies. It made you be afraid of Leatherface again. It made Leatherface scary again. Like, it showed to me what Leatherface really could be. And something I've said a lot about these movies is that it actually, I think, is the best iteration of Leatherface, because he is so physically fucking, like, he outmatches everybody. No matter,
he's a Hulk.
He's a hulking monster in this, and that's what annoys me the most about the way the climax of the 2003 movie was, that she should not have been able to harm him, because the whole movie is the cat and mouse thing, where like the mouse is never going to be able to harm a cat. The only way it can get away, survive a cat, is by getting away from him, escaping him. And I think she could have easily escaped Leatherface in the 2003 movie without causing him any harm, and you could have had the exact same kind of roundup. The way she kills Arlie Ernie, all these kind of things. Even though I felt a little bit drawn out, she could have just escaped. And I think the reason we had a prequel instead of a sequel is because they kind of wrote themselves into a hole a bit by cutting off Leatherface's arm, killing Arlie Ernie's character. And I think they recognized their mistake, and that's why we saw a prequel. But
I'd say you're right, to be honest with you. They had something there, and they were like, well, you know what? We'd only have to go back a year or 2, and we could,
Yeah, exactly. And
they did,
so, and I think that might be another mistake. Maybe they should have gone back a little bit further, and then you could have had another prequel that's in the meantime, that kind of thing. You could have had another installment, because they made the time frame or timeline a little bit too tight. Maybe bring it back 10 years. And then you can have an intermediate movie in between the original, that kind of way. In terms of the timeline, you could constantly keep filling in the gaps of what this family were up to before the Jessica Biel movie. And I think that's the mistake. Maybe that's why you did decrease this longevity in the terms of this iteration of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is that maybe once or twice they wrote themselves into holes or into a corner, and they just couldn't figure a way of getting out of it. And that's why we kind of had this kind of requel with Alexia Daddario that we're going to talk about in the next episode. But
awesome.
Before we get the fuck out here, do you have anything else you want to say about these 2 movies?
No, I like the way they went brum, 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 more than 3 and 4 went brum, 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 brum.
I'm the same as you. I like a lot of brum, 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 brum when I'm talking about chainsaws. So, like, mainly brum, 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 brum has to be like a pivotal part of the movies. Like, don't give me a Texas Chainsaw Massacre if you're not going to have at least 20% of brum, 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 brum on the screen throughout the 90-minute runtime. That's all I'm saying. That's all we're saying. Yeah, that's all. It's all
we are saying is give brum, brum, brum a chance.
Give Chainsaw a chance. I'm the same as you. I think they're a little bit underappreciated, but I can see why they didn't have more movies. Because
you know what? I've been a part of the problem more than I've been a part of the solution with this fanboy horror thing. So I'm not trying to fucking rain on anyone's parade. It's just when you look at these things retroactively.
I think so before we get the fuck over, I think it's not just the fan base, but I think also maybe the writers themselves might have actually limited the lifespan of the franchise by certain creative decisions they made. And I think maybe it's a bit of both, and it's a pity because this iteration of Texas Chainsaw Massacre I think is the best overall. So before we get the fuck out of here, I'm your host Vincent Green.
I'm your host, John Dewey.
And that was Invasion of the Potty Snatchers. And that was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 and Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning from 2006. See you next time, folks. Peace.
Want some candy? Seabitch. Let's go.